Rachel Reeves is fighting for her job. 16 months after a landslide election victory, the Chancellor finds herself under a constant attack in the press and, if the polls are accurate, deeply unpopular with the public. Labour was elected promising to raise taxes by £8.5 billion, increasing spending by £9.5 billion and borrowing £3.5 billion in order to deliver on its manifesto. Now, in her first budget last October, the Chancellor instead raised taxes by £40 billion, spending by £76 billion and borrowing by £36 billion. Saying one thing in opposition and doing something vastly different in government is never good for public trust. Now, Reeves argues she had no choice, that tough decisions were needed to repair public services and fix the public finances. But we were told that a slate had been wiped clean. She was emphatic.
I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
On Wednesday, she'll be back for more, and the tax rises will be hefty. Reeves will attempt to pin the blame on her Tory predecessors. She'll argue that years of austerity, Brexit and chronic underinvestment left the UK economy weaker than anyone realised. She'll say Liz Truss's mini-budget has caused lasting damage to Britain's reputation with financial markets. And she'll point to the havoc caused by President Trump's tariffs, which have pushed up borrowing costs for governments worldwide and reduced tax revenues. These arguments have merit, and it would be unreasonable to hold Reeves responsible for 15 years of weak economic growth in Britain. But Labour in government has also proved as accident-prone as Paddington Bear, and without the compensatory charm. Some of the Chancellor's problems have been clearly self-inflicted. As one of the Bank of England's former chief economist, Andy Haldane, puts it, it has been a bad hand played, in truth, pretty poorly. So, what are the mistakes Rachel Reeves has made? Well, in many ways, the original villain of the piece is a Tory. Jeremy Hunt left Rachel Reeves with spending plans that looked undeliverable. In the months before last year's election, when he was Chancellor, he funded 2 cuts to employee national insurance, a tax, by penciling in deep, unspecified cuts to future public spending. Even at the time, this looked like a cynical trap. The head of the OBR described the public finances as a work of fiction. And before the election, a choir of experts, the IFS, the Resolution Foundation, the Institute for Government and the IMF, all warned that the numbers almost certainly didn't add up. Labour's original mistake was not to agree. Instead, it went along with the fiction and then doubled down.
No increases in national insurance and the basic higher or additional rates of income tax or VAT.
Economists warned this was an unwise promise for a Chancellor to make. Attempting to stick to the manifesto tax lock has shaped and warped some of the big decisions Reeves has made since. That brings us to mistake number 2. Botched welfare cuts. You might remember immediately after the last election in July, Reeves staged an urgent press conference to announce, with no hint of irony,
a £22 billion black hole in the public finances. Not in years to come, but this year.
Pure political theatre. Leaving aside the sophistry, here was another opportunity to declare Hunt's national insurance cuts unaffordable and to reverse them. Rachel Reeves didn't take it. Instead, she cut winter fuel payments, a change that ended up saving the government almost no money, but has burned through enormous amounts of voter goodwill.
Save the winter fuel!
In March this year, faced with the prospect of breaking her own freshly written fiscal rules at the first time of asking, the government rushed out an accelerated review of disability benefits to find savings. The resulting universal credit and personal independence payments bill was so harsh and so poorly designed, it looked instantly doomed. Labour MPs revolted, the government U-turned, first on the winter fuel payments, then on tightening PIP eligibility. The welfare misjudgments have made the government appear weak and inept and have left the Chancellor out of pocket, having banked savings she then failed to secure. That brings us on to her next mistake, related to something called headroom. Now, when chancellors present a budget, they always leave some money unspent as a financial buffer to protect against future storms that could blow plans off course, also known as headroom. Now, in her first budget, Reeves left herself just £10 billion against her main fiscal rule that the current budget must be in balance by 2029-30. That's around a third of the average buffer chancellors have kept since 2010. £10 billion was not enough to absorb really bad news, and now the OBR is set to downgrade its forecast for trend productivity growth, crashing straight through it. The timing of the downgrade is genuinely bad luck. The OBR has been more optimistic than almost every other economic forecaster for several years. Reeves could have spent less and created more headroom in her first budget. She chose not to, and the gamble has backfired. Mistake number 4. The Chancellor wants to improve public services and invest in infrastructure to revive economic growth. Higher taxes are therefore necessary to fund those goals, given the fiscal rules. To try to avoid breaking her election promises last October, Rachel Reeves raised what's known as employer national insurance. It's paid by businesses for each of their workers, and it's effectively a tax on employment. Crucially, she also lowered the threshold at which it kicks in. Now, these changes combined raised £25 billion a year, but in practice, around a third of that has been lost through lower wages, squeezed company profits, fewer jobs and higher welfare bills. There's now convincing evidence that the lower threshold, combined with a steep rise in the national minimum wage, has destroyed part-time and entry-level jobs, pushed up inflation, made public services more expensive to deliver, and angered many businesses. Reeves had other options. Reversing Hunt's national insurance cuts or raising income tax would have likely been less economically damaging, but doing either of those things would have been a clear breach of the manifesto tax lock promise. Now, there has been a long and rather tedious debate about whether by increasing employer national insurance, the Chancellor has already compromised the spirit of the pledge anyway. Suffice to say, many Labour MPs believe the tax lock is still intact, and they fear that if national insurance, income tax or VAT rise in the budget on Wednesday, it would further erode what trust remains in this government. So, where does Rachel Reeves go from here? The UK's national debt is near post-war highs, growth prospects look anaemic, government borrowing costs are the highest in the G7. Investors currently see the UK as a riskier bet than France, a country with higher debt levels and a politically paralysed government. Reeves needs to increase taxes, but wants to boost growth, cut inflation and give the Bank of England room to reduce interest rates at the same time. Those objectives are commendable, but preparation for this budget has been chaotic, bordering on the shambolic at times. 3 months of constant speculation about which taxes will go up has suffocated spending and investment. We've been marched up the hill, apparently in preparation for income tax increases.
We will all have to contribute to that effort. Each of us must do our bit.
And then march straight back down again. As it stands, we expect the Chancellor to use the budget to address the OBR downgrade, restore some headroom, offer help for energy bills and lift the 2-child cap on benefits. To pay for all of these things, she's likely to extend the freeze on income tax and national insurance thresholds and announce a series of smaller tax rises targeting pensions, high-value homes and gambling firms, among other things. The risks of this approach are obvious. A comparatively small group of losers will scream loudly. The winners probably won't care. And in the scramble to raise $1 billion here and $1 billion there, something could blow up. Rachel Reeves needs a showstopper, a budget that shifts the political narrative, lifts her dire approval ratings, and offers a credible path to economic growth in the years to come, not least for investors. Her hat needs to contain a pretty spectacular rabbit. Her job may depend on pulling one out.